How do you arrange your practice sessions? Is it a daily thing? Is it when you can? Are you structured? I think a lot of people, when they are trying to get better at music, obviously practicing is one of the things, and it's hard. Nobody likes doing it. It's like going to the gym, But if you do put the work in daily, you get better and better. How do you practice your how do you practice? And then any tips or tricks to help build a better rhythm for people so they can practice more consistently?
Mhm. Yeah. Consistent practice, I don't think it's just some like woo-woo idea. Uh, in my experience doing it and as a teacher and talking with my peers and seeing people interviewed on podcasts like this one, everybody agrees like do something consistent, whatever that is. Um, if you can only do 20 minutes a day because your life is that way, okay, but then really do it. And uh, I find it helpful if you can do it at the same time. But yeah, it's really like going to the gym or whatever. You just put it in your schedule and you show up and you do it day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. That is not the way a lot of people want to do things, but that's how real progress is made. If you don't care about progress and you're like, I'm just, I like to pick up my guitar and fool around for, 20 minutes after work when I get home, that's fine. No shame in just picking it up to play it for fun. That's cool. But if you actually want to see progress and be a better guitar player a year from now than you are now, then I think you actually should focus on just a handful of things. Like be honest with yourself, do the work where the work is needed. Don't be driven by some dude on YouTube who did some fantastic thing that you're like, oh, I got to figure that out. Um, that's more, I think, for the weekend warriors. Uh, I think if you're trying to really get somewhere on the guitar, you can't be distracted by uh, something that's not. You want to really draw a circle around what's important to you and make all of your practice time about that and try to eliminate other things. And then, maybe one day a week you give yourself a free day and you play just for fun. But I think you make more progress by doing fewer things and being systematic and repeat, 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 repeat. That's where you see real progress.
So now, as a musician, there's a lot of different things you can practice, right? Obviously, I mean, the list is infinite, right? Like I've met people who've been playing for 60 years and they're still like, I got to learn this, or they're like, Ted Green, where they're still learning and raising the bar. For an effective practice session, how much of the practicing should be learning tunes, maybe music theory, scales in chords and versions? How much of it should be mechanical stuff? So, like your picking technique. What mindset do you think those things take up your time? I guess in a practice session.
Yeah. Uh, I would say picking technique for me is the thing I think about the least. Uh, I I don't even know what my system is. Some people are like, "Oh, well, there's down up picking, there's, economy picking, etc." I don't really have a system of that. It's never been my focus. So, as far as like that part of technique, I would say that's the small that's not even a piece of the pie. It's like a crumb or something of the pie. But I do think about finger picking technique because it's something that I came to later. Like for the first 20 years I played guitar, I really, other than playing Blackbird or something, I mostly was playing with a pick. And then when I started getting into I still don't have, like, a super solid technique, but sometimes I think, like, this is the whole machine, this is all you need, just thumb and index. That's what Merle Travis did. Lots of guitar players that I admire just do this. My friend Chris Bruce, in New York, incredible guitar player, does stuff with just thumb and index that seems impossible to me. So then I go and I add, this finger. And then sometimes I go through the Giuliani 120 arpeggios for the right hand. Mauro Giuliani was a Italian guitarist, composer, and he wrote this 120 etudes series and so that's for classical guitar. So now you're using all of this. And so if I feel like I'm getting rusty with being able to do stuff with my right hand, I'll either go to the Giuliani book or, practice something, you know, from a record that I've heard, or just try to, spend some time making music with any one of these, right hand combinations. So over time, I would say that's probably like 10 to 15% of what I work on. Um, I work on time feel, groove feel. So that might be put on a metronome or a drum machine or some kind of loop and just play with it, something simple, and just try to make it feel good, uh, which is harder than it ought to be. uh, but I spend probably 10 to 15% of my practice time just doing that to make sure that, and I like to do that at the beginning of a practice session so that if I start out by trying to make things feel good, feel settled, feel fun, funky, uh, pocket, if you want to use that word. Um, then everything else I do, the rest of the practice session is going to be built on that foundation. And so that would be something I would do at the top. Sometimes I don't have a pick here, but I have a paper clip. So just imagine it's a pick. Sometimes I'll just start a practice session with a drum loop or metronome and just play quarter notes for 5 minutes and then play some eighth notes and maybe try to do something, make some kind of 2 bar rhythmic phrase or 4 bar rhythmic phrase and do that. And really just get into the time. So that's my warm up these days. I don't have like a arpeggio or scale warm up routine. I'm warming up, to me, is more about time feel, about hearing what I'm playing. So sometimes I'll just start and go up and down one string. So I'm really tuned into the intervals. Like, yeah, this is what a perfect fourth is like. And this is what a minor sixth is like. And this is what an octave is like before I start doing it across the string. And then I have to do the same thing going this way so that I'm really tuning into what is the sound in my head, what's a melody that I want to play on the guitar, and play it real slowly and confidently, so that as I pick up the pace, I'm not letting my fingers get ahead of my ears. And then so that could be maybe we're 35 minutes into if I have an hour. So I'm doing just time stuff, which could be with a pick or with my fingers. Then connecting my ear to the guitar. So I'm playing what I'm hearing in my head. And then after that, I might work on, yeah, some Bach or some Jimmy Weibel, or I might transcribe something. Yesterday, I transcribed. Uh, there's a John Coltrane. There's a record that John Coltrane made called Coltrane Plays the Blues, and there's a tune on there called Mr. Sims, which is kind of just like a blues in C minor, but it's all these kind of upper structure things. Uh, and I've heard that record for years, never bothered to figure out what the harmony was, and I got curious about it. So I might do something like that where I transcribe it, and I do put it on paper. It's not just play it, but I want to see it so I can think about it.
What is the most beneficial thing in your career that you've spent the most time practicing? And what have you practiced that has been the biggest waste of time?
Wow. Um, um, Playing along with records, I think, is the most beneficial thing you could do, that I have done anyway. Uh, that's different from transcribing where I want to look at it on the page. Really, I just want to join the band. And so that's changed over the years. When I was, younger, I wanted to join the Beatles. So I would just play along with those records and try to play the guitar parts and try to get the sound and the feel and notice when the guitar part would stop and there, would lay out and then come back in, or, just, yeah. And then over time, I got into jazz and other stuff and whatever. But yeah, playing along with records because it's the closest thing that you have to playing with a band. Playing with iReal Pro or something like that is okay as a tool, but I think you learn more from playing along with records because then you hear what it's really going to be like when when you show up and play with people, or it's as close as you. So that's the most beneficial thing that I've spent my time doing, and I went away from it. I'm coming back more to it now. The biggest waste of time, uh, uh, this will not every. Oh, you just, well, so me personally, I think arpeggios are. Uh, I don't want to say a waste of time, but in the way that I play, I find that they're not, for the amount of emphasis that they get in music school. Let me put it that way. For the amount of emphasis that arpeggios get in music school, um, I find them to be, I heard some comedians say this, like, when I was a kid, I was prepared for that when I grew up, there was going to be a lot of quicksand, and that was going to be a big issue in my life. And of course, that's how arpeggios are to me. I use them, they are part of music, but I don't think they're that big of a deal. Somebody else might say the same thing about the modes, right? Like, really? When do you use Phrygian in real life? So I'm just saying for me, somebody else might say arpeggios are invaluable and I use them. Where would I be without them? But I find them to be overemphasized in school and not all that important to me. And if I could have those hours back, I would gladly have them
Wow, that's definitely the hot take of the day for sure.
back.